The name I use now, or am, is not my original name. My original name was Margaret Smith, Maggie Smith. And when I joined Equity, they said, look, dear, you have to change your name. And I said, really, why? And they said, well, there's another Maggie Smith. So I thought, okay, I liked the name Anna, and I had an Irish granny. So I thought, Anna Hagen, that sounds pretty good. I think when I was about 14, 15 in school, my English teacher said, you've got a good voice. I'd like you to go into a voice contest at Kiwanis Festival. And I went home and my mother said, you don't have time to do that, and you don't know anything about Shakespeare, and you're too busy with your ice skating. And so I went back to my teacher, it was fine, and I said, I really don't have time. And years later, of course, Shakespeare's a love of mine, and I've been to Stratford in the early days, and yeah, I love Shakespeare. So I was a very, very good ice skater. Everyone used to skate. I was really good, but my family was not in a financial position to sort of stream me into competition, which was really, no, never mind, I was fine. And my pro at that time, who went on to coach many Olympic champions, he said, you know, if you can't go into competition, why don't you join Ice Capades when you're a couple years older? And I said, oh yeah, that would be fun. So I went home and said to my mother, I want to join Ice Capades. And she said, you're not leaving home till you're 18. So I joined Ice Capades when I was 18. I just thought I knew it all. They took me to the train station, and I had one of those big steamer trunks. We traveled by train, and all our not our costumes, our wardrobe was in there. So the first night backstage, I was just gobsmacked. There were all these tall, beautiful-looking boys. A lot of the gay boys in those years, they were not out the way they are now. They just weren't acceptable. So they either joined ballet companies or ice companies. And they took one look at me and just took me under their wing. And 2 weeks later, I had platinum blonde hair and eyelashes out to here. And yeah, it was a hoot. After 3 years of that, I came back to Toronto, and that's when I started to act. I think I started with ACTRA. I was an apprentice at Shaw Festival in the mid to late 60s, I think. It's so long ago. And probably around then, when I changed my name and joined the Equity Union, and then did a lot of television in my youth. And actually, I was in the very first soap opera. It was called Moment of Truth. And I believe it was 1970, and they all came up from New York, and I played the girlfriend to Peter Donat, whom I subsequently worked with on stage many, many years later. And when I left Ice Capades, I was young and, you know, good looking, and I think I went to CBC, and they took one look at me, and I was like a background for a while, and I took acting lessons from a man named Eli Rill, who used to come from New York to Toronto, and he would audition you, and if he accepted you, you'd pay him money, and he'd teach you how to act. So I did that for a couple of, about a year or so, 2 years probably. I modeled, that's how I made a living, did a lot of catalog work. Desperately wanted to be in the fashion industry, but I wasn't tall enough. Sort of had the face from here up, but not the long, lean body. I never had any problems. You know, as I said, it was very white then. Yeah, it's just the people, I think, that ran the business, you know? And it was not inclusive. It's much more inclusive now. And we're not seeing as much the age disparity as we used to. You know, it used to always be, how come the man at 60 has a 20-year-old on his arm? Well, it's somewhat the same now, except they're sort of 30 or 40. But yeah, the fastest growing demographic is women over the age of 50. And ultimately, well, there's a lot more women. There's a lot more women going for power and empowering themselves. So it's important we see those stories. So Robin Phillips, I would say, is my big, big mentor for acting. I was involved with a wonderful experimental theater company called Tamanoose. I worked a lot at the Vancouver Playhouse. I did quite a bit of acting on TV, but a really interesting time for me was when the West and the East had a rift, UBCP and ACTRA. I was very, very much involved with the early formation of UBCP. And having said that, I have to go forward and say it's wonderful that we're coming together again. But in those days, there was a lot of animosity and resentment because all the money that was, not all the money, but a lot of the money that was made here went to the head office. And people felt that it was not fair. Well, once we sort of got UBCP up and going, it's like anything. You start a thing and there comes a time when you back away. And yeah, I just backed away for a long time, was on the periphery. And now that it's a lot healthier, I find that I'm interested in doing more. But it's been a really interesting career, a wonderful career, and it's not over yet by any means, but I look back on some things and I was extremely lucky. I worked very hard, and yeah, I had some really good times. I loved radio. That's where I met my second husband. That's a funny story too, because we were cast as boyfriend and girlfriend, and in those days the mics in the studios were like huge. So he was on that side and I was on this side, and we had our scripts, and it was blah, 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 blah. And it was a love scene, and it wasn't working. And Rob Chesterman was up in the booth, and Terry, my husband, said, you know, Rob, this isn't working. And Rob said, no, it isn't. And so Terry said, what if I come around and we share the mic? Anna will hold her script and I'll be over her shoulder and we'll do the scene like that. Well, that was it. We sort of took a whiff of one another. That was the beginning. I'm very proud of my sons, but proud of what I've done. It's just, well, of course I've done it. And of course I'm a good actor. I should be. I've been doing it for so long, you know. Yeah, proud isn't part of my, maybe it is when I'm in bed at night or something, but I can't say, oh, I was fabulous in that, because I try to be good in everything I do. In recent history, there was one, it was an Edward Albee play called Three Tall Women, and its life is seen through one woman, but three ages. So she starts out as being 90, and then in the second act you see her when she's in full bloom in her 60s. So when she's 90, she looks back on her life and she's feisty and she's hard and brittle. And then you see her when she's younger. It's a wonderful play. Albee's a remarkable playwright. It probably took a couple of years off my life to learn it. It's just wall-to-wall talk. But yeah, I really enjoyed doing that. One of the earliest people, when we moved to LA, there was a man named Harvey Hart, a well-known Canadian director in the 70s. I remember one night we were all talking, and he was talking about something, and I didn't interrupt. I was just, just adding to the conversation. And he looked at me, he said, if you're going to be a good actor, you've got to learn to listen. And I think women are just so totally different than men. I don't think they should try to be men. It's like, you're a man, I'm a woman. I deserve to be here. And there's certain things that, yes, I do better than you. My dad always said, you take people as you find them. And how I react to you might be totally different than how I react to you. So, yeah.